Hey everyone, Chase Kaufman here. Today's an important day if you haven't heard already because we have some notable rule changes and rules that didn't change for the 2022 to 2023 season. I spoke with MHSAA Director of Bowling Cody Inglis about these developments in high school bowling and exactly what the process is for these changes.
So the process starts, again, with me being the Director of Bowling as the staff liaison, and I get agenda items all year long from bowling coaches, from the Bowling Coaches Association, from proprietors, you name it, I'm getting and collecting that. So those agenda items make up the agenda of the bowling committee. The bowling committee is a selected group of coaches, administrators, proprietors, finals tournament managers. Anybody associated with the high school bowling is eligible in a sense that's connected to a school. That's the only, the real caveat of it. It's a 2-year, essentially commitment to the bowling committee, and that bowling committee then meets once a year. We've met as we are doing via Zoom, but usually it's an in-person meeting if we're not in COVID. And the reality is we discuss all those agenda items. The bowling committee has the right and to essentially make proposals. Those proposals aren't binding, but they are proposals that are voted on through Robert's Rules of Order, just as any other committee is, that would essentially go to the representative council. The representative council is an elected board of 19 members that are the governing board of the MHSAA. They meet 3 times a year. And essentially, those are athletic directors, principals, superintendents from around the state representing different schools. They are essentially a school board of the MHSAA, for lack of a better term. They decide on what proposals go forward. They debate the merits. We as staff simply would present those to the representative council. The representative council then determines the validity of them, if there are unintended consequences of those decisions or proposals. And if it's good for the sport, they then go forward and vote. And that is then put in place for the following school year. So they met in early May. Those proposals, bowling and every other 28 sports, are put in place and for the next school year. So for the 22-23 school year.
So something that's been talked about quite a lot this entire year really has been the talk about going to 6 bowlers at regionals and states from 7 in years past. So what was the thought process behind this proposal and what was the result coming out of it?
I think it's important to understand where we came from in this. The reality is that COVID has impacted all of us and still continues to impact us. And this decision to reduce the roster size or the number of people in a bowling center, as you know, was mandated upon us. It wasn't something we chose. And so one of the ways that through COVID we were able to get bowling completed was that we reduced the number of people in the house. And one of the ways that we saw doing that was reducing the roster size. Right now there's 7 allowed in a team event, though, as you know, we only 5 bowl. Some coaches use subs very well. Others simply have 2 extra kids in the house. The reality is, as you well stated, no bowling center or house was built for spectators. It was built to bowl, and the reality is high school bowling has elevated the need to allow people to come in and see their kids bowl. So the committee felt very strongly that what's the balance point? Meaning the number of people in a house to, number one, make it safe. And the reality is we were faced this year with not only COVID restrictions, even this year, but also fire marshal restrictions. And the size of the number of people in a house, even at a state finals venue, our biggest houses in the state couldn't host the number of people that wanted to get in to see it. We had to limit that. That's a concern when we know that as we studied the data and looked at the number of kids in the house, a number of those kids, 30 to 50, didn't bowl, literally didn't bowl. They were simply there. And I don't in any way say taking up space, because it's providing experience. That's what we do. We provide experiences and kids make memories out of those. So they were getting experience, and we don't want to say it was a bad thing, but the reality was, how do we balance what kids are actually doing versus who wants to come in and see versus how coaches are using those substitutes in a center and at a finals or regional tournament. It came out of COVID. I think the reality is the committee had real good reasons why. The other reason that I think that is important to say is there's a cost issue with this. Travel and the number of the cost that it takes to put a kid in a car and put a kid in a hotel room in many cases, and then feed that kid and make sure that they're there, comes directly out of either a school's pocket or the parent's pocket. And the reality is we found, and when we did kind of an research on this, is that many programs were just bringing kids, and those kids weren't bowling in the team event, and then weren't also bowling in a singles event, but they were just there to get an experience, which again is great, but somebody was paying for that cost. And the feedback we got, especially from parents who are the ones doling out this pocketbook, it put some pressure on coaches, and it put some pressure on programs. And I think that was another real good reason to consider this rule proposal. In the end, it did not pass. The Rep Council felt that there was merit to it, but the reality was they felt like the unintended consequence might be that it actually hurts the sport of bowling. We're trying to grow the sport of bowling, the experience that we talked about that's so valuable for kids to get as a freshman or sophomore or inexperienced bowler, when they get and can be that sub, that seventh bowler, that sixth bowler, and may not even literally get into a team event, can still have a great experience. And at regionals and finals, they felt like that was kind of the reason to kind of pump the brakes a little bit on this. It really wasn't ready for prime time. The other aspect of this, I think, Chase, that's really important is that we're looking at a district format. And if you look at trying to reduce the number of teams and patrons and spectators in a facility, reducing the size of the field might be the way to do that, meaning go to a district regional finals format instead of a regionals finals format, which then reduces the number of teams, obviously, that advance further going up, and it reduces the number of people in the house. It's a long-winded way of saying, I think it's a good idea that time is not right, and we move on, and the process was followed, and we're happy that we're going to be investigating the district format, which I think is going to be a valuable thing for high school bowling.
All right, and then another rule change, bowlers can now only bring 5 bowling balls into the bowling alley and then 2 balls into the bowlers area. Was this kind of a safety issue?
Certainly a safety issue, a space issue. The finals venues, again, could get very crowded in the bowlers area, and we were having kids come in with 8-10 balls. And the reality was then 2 roller bags, and it became a space issue, especially during COVID. Again, paddock areas were being shut down. So many of those balls then made their way back out to the bowlers area, which created a space issue. This was just essentially a limiting of the number of balls in the bowling area for space, for safety, to making sure that we didn't have too many in one area. And I think it's a good thing by the committee. And
then thirdly, the foul lights. These are not going to be used anymore. It'll be more of a kind of an honor system. First notice will be a warning. Second will be a foul. So tell me a little bit more about this one.
Yeah, I think the idea behind this was literally, we heard from proprietors and centers that some across the whole lanes, that there were many foul lights that just didn't work. And so then you almost had an uneven playing field, or a level playing field, in that some lanes would work and would give an immediate foul. Some were very sensitive. The reality was that this is an older way to determine whether or not a bowler is getting advantage. We're not eliminating the rule. The rule is still there, but the reality is during tournament play, you're going to turn off those foul lights because we want to make sure that it's fair across the board for the entire field. And we think it's a good thing in the end to have the honor system, the integrity of the sport be put there. It's a warning for the first violation, and then it would be just a 0 in that frame for that next one.
And then the last one, the regional format is going to change a little bit. It'll be the same as states. So regionals, as states has been, will now be 8 bakers followed by 2 team games.
I think two ways. One, pace of play. We wanted to we understand that going to a baker game is a little bit quicker than a regular game, and so that helped. The other thing is just consistency. It matches up regionals to finals, and there were real reasons why we started this way, but the reality is it's good to get back into a format where regionals and finals are the same qualification system, and kids will get used to it, get prepared for what's going to happen at the finals, and also probably shorten up the day a little bit at regionals and allow us to potentially use some different houses, maybe a double shift in some houses that are a little bit shorter instead of a long day.
So the Phantom Pattern has been around for a season now. What have your thoughts been on it so far?
I think it was interesting. Like anything new, change is difficult. We found there's always feedback, positive and negative. But the reality is we found 2 things with the Phantom Pattern. One, it held up longer, which was one of the key advantages. Number 2, it was a little bit more difficult than people thought to adjust to. We're trying to get centers and proprietors and houses to put it out during the regular season so that it's not a surprise to kids when they get to the regional or finals, because the reality is more times you bowl on this pattern, the better and easier it's going to become. We saw that with the Allen pattern, and we see that again with a Phantom pattern. In the end, I think it's a good thing. And I think after 1 year, we're certainly not going to change it. We're going to let it take its course, and we'll see how it goes here in the next couple of years.
And what's your feeling about high school bowling right now in its current state?
I feel good about where the sport is. I feel good about the connection to keep kids going. As I said, it's a fast growing sport. It's something we want to keep as a part of things. We want to continue to work and be good stewards of going into houses and venues and working with the providers. And the Coach Association certainly does that and helps us. And we're excited to be a part of this and excited to see the growth, continued support for high school bowling around the state.
And now let's give a shout out to some recent youth tournament winners. For the Great Lakes Junior Gold Tour in Lansing at Royal Scott, Wyatt Spear won in a nail biter in the U12 boys division. Sophia DeLucia cruised on the U15 girls side. Matt Sprout took down the U15 boys title. Sarah Ritchie took home some scholarship points in the U18 girls division. Ryan Spear did the same for the U18 boys, while Rachel Eha and Zachary Baum won in their respective U20 divisions. In Waterford, Katie Stevens and Bryce Cadera earned the top spot in the U15 divisions. Megan Tim and Brandon Levitt finished first in the U18 divisions. Rachel Eha won again in the U20 girls division, and Micah Groom topped the U20 boys. At MJMA at the Davenport University Open at Spectrum Lanes, Gabrielle Brown narrowly defeated Hadley Clark in the U15 final. Carson Troyer narrowly slid past Joe Mertz in the U15 boys final. Noah Samuels beat David Shaberg in the 1-2 matchup to take home the U20 boys title. But the story of the weekend came from Brenna Hartzler, who accumulated her 8th title of the year in a win over Carly Van Dynen, an MJMA single season record. And last but not least, we want to congratulate Dylan Vermelia on signing with Coach Mike Jasinski at Trine University. Dylan comes from Cadillac High School and will major in exercise science. Congratulations, Dylan. If you have a college signing announcement, tournament results, or anything else you think might fit in right here at GLBN, feel free to send us an email at greatlanesbowlingnews@gmail.com. That's all we have for today. We hope you enjoyed the interview and are already getting ready for the upcoming season. I'm Chase Kaufman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and of course, go out and shoot some 10 points.